Welcome to this deep dive. If you're anything like me, your phone has probably buzzed at least 3 times since you just put your headphones on.
Oh, at least 3 times, yeah.
Right. And your email inbox is, well, it's a disaster area that you're actively avoiding right now. And honestly, you probably haven't had a solid, uninterrupted hour of deep thought since maybe, I don't know, 2018.
That sounds painfully accurate for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, if that sounds familiar, you are in the exact right place. Because you're joining us today because you are the ultimate learner. You're someone looking to cut through that relentless, overwhelming noise of modern life and get straight to those aha moments that actually, move the needle.
The things that actually matter.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're looking for an edge, a way to operate at your absolute best. And today our mission is a big one. We are going to explore exactly how you can unlock your absolute highest potential in a world that feels like it's constantly aggressively trying to distract you.
It really is. It's built for that.
It is. And to do this, we're pulling from the core insights of a phenomenal book called Deep Work Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World. We're relying on a really comprehensive booky summary of Cal Newport's original work.
And it's really worth establishing right up front who Cal Newport actually is, because his background gives these ideas so much more weight than your average, productivity guru online.
Oh, absolutely.
He's an esteemed computer science professor at Georgetown University. This isn't some guy who just hates technology or doesn't understand it. He spends his entire professional life deeply embedded in the digital landscape.
Right. He's not a Luddite shouting from a cabin in the woods.
Exactly. He's researching complex systems, algorithms, how humans interact with tech. Yet despite being completely immersed in that world, or maybe exactly because he's so immersed in it, he pushes back hard against almost all the conventional wisdom we hold about being productive.
Being creative.
Right, being creative, and just how we're actually supposed to use these devices in our pockets.
I love that point. He's a literal computer scientist telling us that the way we're currently using technology is actively destroying our ability to do anything meaningful.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the core premise of what we're unpacking today. The ability to focus without distraction on cognitively demanding tasks, what Newport defines as deep work,
Yeah.
is becoming incredibly rare.
So rare.
But at the exact same time, because of massive shifts in our global economy, that specific ability is becoming extraordinarily valuable. It's the ultimate modern paradox.
It is, and what's fascinating here is the sheer scale of the stakes involved. When we talk about this concept of deep work today, I want to be very clear. We are not just sharing a few neat time management tricks.
Right. This isn't about inbox zero.
No, this isn't a hack to help you clear out your spam folder faster or, organize your desktop icons. We are talking about fundamental economic survival. We're talking about how to thrive in a new digital economy that is ruthlessly leaving people behind.
Wow.
The overarching narrative we're going to explore is why the modern workplace, despite all its cutting-edge tools, the sleek software, the open floor plans, is actually perfectly engineered to stop you from doing your absolute best work.
We're going to deconstruct this paradox, figure out why your office is sabotaging you, and most importantly, give you the blueprint to escape it.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting with the macro view. Because before we look at your daily schedule, we really need to look at the massive shift that's currently redefining how the entire planet works.
The big picture.
Right. Newport introduces this massive concept called the Great Restructuring. This is a phrase originally coined by two economists, Eric Brynjolfsson and Andrew McAfee. They use this term to describe a highly disruptive, completely transformative phase of human history that you and I and everyone listening are living through right this very second.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the Great Restructuring is essentially what happens when technological advancement starts moving at a speed that completely outpaces the skill development of the average worker.
Okay, so what does that look like historically?
Well, think back. For decades, human skills and workplace technology progressed somewhat in tandem. A new machine was invented, workers took a few months to learn how to operate it, and productivity went up. Everything moved together.
Natural progression of things.
Exactly. But now, digital technology, complex algorithms, machine learning, AI, they're advancing so rapidly that a massive, terrifying gap has opened up. It's creating a severe bifurcation in the labor market.
It's splitting right down the middle.
It is a harsh reality, but it essentially boils down to this incredibly stark choice. You either learn how to leverage this advanced technology or you get entirely left behind by it. There's very little middle ground left.
Right? The days of the safe, comfortable, middle-of-the-road knowledge worker who just kind of processes paperwork all day are rapidly coming to an end.
They're gone.
The impact of this digital tech on the labor market has created this stark divide. On one side, you have individuals who are thriving, making more money, having more impact than ever before. On the other, you have those who are stagnating, largely due to forces like automation AI and outsourcing of basic repeatable tasks.
Yeah, but the basic stuff is gone.
To really understand this, Newport breaks down three specific types of people. The three beneficiary groups who are positioned to absolutely dominate and thrive in this new economy. Let's look at who is actually winning right now, because obviously we all want to be in one of these groups. First up, we have what he calls the high-skilled workers.
Yeah, let's look closely at them. High-skilled workers are those individuals who possess the rare, highly technical ability to excel in using incredibly complex machines and advanced data analysis.
They're the ones driving the tech.
They're the ones who can actually speak the language of the machines that are driving this whole restructuring. Newport uses Nate Silver as a prime example here.
Oh, right. Nate Silver.
Now, most people know Nate Silver from his political polling models and sports predictions. But why is he so valuable? It's not just because he's a smart guy who likes baseball.
Right.
It's because he can look at massive, messy, incomprehensible data sets, millions of data points that would crash a normal person's Excel spreadsheet and their brain. And he can utilize sophisticated analytical tools to extract incredibly valuable, highly accurate insights.
Because he can navigate that extreme complexity, his skills are at an absolute premium. He isn't competing against the computer, he's orchestrating it.
Exactly.
So if I'm trying to picture this for the listener, it's the difference between being the person who uses an app and the person who builds the neural network that powers the app's recommendation engine. One is easily replaceable, the other is a high-skilled worker dictating the future.
That's a perfect analogy. The high-skilled worker is the one who understands the underlying logic of the new economy.
Okay, then we have the second group, the superstars. These are exceptional talents who dominate what has now become a truly global talent marketplace. Now, I think this is a huge point. Before the digital age, your talent only had to be the best in your local town or maybe just the best in your specific office building, right?
Right. You just had to be the best guy in the room.
Exactly. If you were the best accountant in a 50-mile radius, you had a great career. But now the market can simply select the absolute best person in the entire world for a given task with almost zero friction.
And that is a crucial, terrifying distinction for a lot of people. When the talent pool becomes truly global, the rewards heavily concentrate at the very top. It's a winner-take-all dynamic.
There's the example here.
Newport highlights David Heinemeier Hansson as the archetype here.
Mm-hmm.
He goes by DHH in the tech world. He's an exceptionally talented world-class programmer. He created the Ruby on Rails web framework.
Huge framework.
Massive. Because digital tools allow knowledge work to be done from anywhere, a company doesn't need to hire 10 average programmers locally in Ohio or London. They can just hire one superstar like Hansson, pay him an absolute fortune, and have him do the work at a master level from wherever he wants to live.
The superstars thrive because the digital economy allows their exceptional output to be scaled infinitely without any drop in quality.
Infinite scale, that's the key.
Which leaves us with the third and final group benefiting from this new economy, the owners of capital. These are the investors, the venture capitalists. Newport points to guys like John Doerr.
Right, the big money.
These are individuals who have massive financial resources to invest directly in these explosive new technologies. They pour capital into the machines, the AI startups, the software companies.
And because digital businesses can scale to millions or billions of users with very little overhead, unlike a traditional factory that has to buy more steel and hire more workers to grow, these investors reap immense, massive returns.
With very minimal actual labor input on their part.
Yeah.
The technology and the superstars do all the heavy lifting, and the capital owners collect the unprecedented rewards.
This raises an important question for you listening right now. Where do you fit into this picture? When you look at those three groups, the high-skilled data whisperers, the global superstars, and the billionaire owners of capital, it forces a really uncomfortable moment of self-reflection.
Very uncomfortable.
Let's be honest. Unless you're sitting on a massive fortune and can simply buy your way into that third group like John Doerr, your path forward is remarkably narrow, but it is clear.
You have to aim for group 1 or 2.
Exactly. You have to aim to become either a high-skilled worker who can master complex systems or a superstar in your specific niche who can produce at a world-class level. There really isn't a safe, comfortable middle ground anymore where you can just show up, do mediocre work, and expect a lifelong career.
So the million-dollar question, how exactly do you do that? How do you, the listener, join those elite ranks? Newport lays it out incredibly plainly. To succeed, to become a superstar or a high-skilled worker, you need to cultivate 2 very specific core abilities.
What are they?
The first is the mastery of hard things. You must have the ability to quickly master complex and difficult skills. And quickly is the key word there.
Yeah, you can't take 10 years.
Right. You can't rely on the degree you got 10 years ago because the technology and the software you need to use today probably didn't even exist then.
Absolutely.
The second core ability is elite level production. It's not enough to just quietly possess those hard skills in your head. You must be able to produce output at an incredibly high quality and at a very rapid speed. You have to ship the work.
Now, what's fascinating here is how these 2 massive macroeconomic necessities directly map onto the micro-level biological realities of your brain, and specifically the practice of deep work.
Let's get into the biology.
Newport argues that both of these abilities, mastering hard things and elite-level production, rely entirely 100% on your ability to do deep work. Think about that first ability, mastering hard things. Let's look at the neuroscience for a second.
Okay.
When you engage in deep, focused concentration without any distraction, you are actually facilitating mastery on a physical, neurological level. Focused practice forces your brain to fire specific circuits repeatedly.
Firing over and over.
Exactly. And when that happens, your brain wraps those neural circuits in a fatty tissue called myelin. The more myelin you build around a circuit, the faster and more effortlessly you can perform that skill. You are physically reinforcing the neural connections necessary to build true expertise.
Wait, let me stop you there because that is huge. You're saying focus isn't just a mood or a mindset, it's a physiological requirement to upgrade your brain hardware.
Exactly. You literally biologically cannot learn a highly complex skill quickly while you are simultaneously checking instant messages, listening to a deep dive, and glancing at your email.
Because your attention is split.
If your attention is fractured, your brain doesn't know which circuit to myelinate. You remain an amateur because your brain physically cannot lock in the learning.
And that biological reality perfectly applies to the second ability too, right? Elite level production. Deep work enables high output because you're optimizing your productivity by concentrating on a single task.
Precisely.
Newport highlights the example of Adam Grant, who is this incredibly prolific organizational psychologist at Wharton and a best-selling author. His work habits are legendary and perfectly exemplify this. Grant doesn't try to write a book while also answering student emails, attending faculty meetings, and checking his social media mentions.
No, that would be impossible.
Right. He utilizes intense, aggressive, deep work to optimize his output. He focuses intensely on a single task, completely isolating himself from any fragmentation. And as a result, he produces valuable, high-quality academic papers and books at a speed that seems almost superhuman to his peers.
And we have to understand the mechanism behind Adam Grant's speed. When you are single-tasking with intense focus, you bypass something called the cognitive penalty that comes with context switching.
The cognitive penalty.
Yes. There's a concept in psychology called attention residue. Every single time you glance away from a complex spreadsheet to check a Slack notification or a text message, your brain leaves a residue of your attention on that notification.
Even if you go right back to the spreadsheet.
Even if you turn back 2 seconds later, a significant portion of your cognitive processing power is still stuck thinking about that text message. It takes a massive amount of time, sometimes over 20 minutes, to get your full cognitive power back to the primary task.
Wow, 20 minutes.
Deep work completely eliminates that residue. It allows you to operate at absolute peak mental capacity, which is the only way you achieve elite level production.
Okay, I'm buying into this. It makes total sense. But here's where it gets really interesting, because I have to play devil's advocate for a second.
Please do.
What about the exceptions? Newport actually brings up a highly specific counterexample that seems to fly in the face of everything we just talked about. He brings up Jack Dorsey, the famous tech entrepreneur who co-founded Twitter and Square.
Ah, yes, the Jack Dorsey exception.
By all accounts, Dorsey is someone who famously thrives in a highly distracted, chaotic, fragmented work environment. He's known for constantly shifting his attention, dealing with a barrage of rapid-fire interruptions, having a schedule packed with 5-minute standing meetings, basically never sitting down for long periods of uninterrupted deep focus.
Right, it's chaos.
Yet he's undeniably a billionaire and incredibly successful in this exact same new economy.
Hmm.
If deep work is the only way to succeed, how is Jack Dorsey doing it?
I love that you brought him up because he is the ultimate trap for the rest of us. It's a brilliant paradox to explore. Why does Dorsey succeed without deep work? The analysis Newport provides is vital here. We have to look at what Jack Dorsey's actual job is.
Okay, so what is his job?
He is a high-level executive, a CEO. His specific role in the multi-billion-dollar companies he runs is not to be a deep thinker producing complex original output from scratch. He isn't writing the code. He isn't designing the server architecture.
He's not in the trenches.
No. His role is to act as a rapid-fire decision maker. He has a massive organization of thousands of people doing the deep work for him, synthesizing data and bringing him highly refined options.
And then he just points the ship.
Exactly. His job is to look at those options, apply his intuition and experience, provide immediate direction, and keep the giant corporate machine moving. A CEO's day is naturally a series of 10-minute interactions, and for that highly specific executive function, a fragmented environment is actually functional.
Okay, let's unpack this carefully because I feel like this is a massive career-destroying trap for a lot of people listening. It's so tempting, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly tempting.
We look at a famous, successful billionaire CEO like Jack Dorsey. We see his chaotic, distraction-heavy schedule profiled in some magazine, and we think, well, if it works for him, I should work like that too. I should be answering emails at midnight and jumping between 10 projects at once.
It looks like hustle.
Exactly. But you have to remember, you are not Jack Dorsey. Unless you are the CEO of a massive conglomerate whose sole job is to approve or deny high-level strategies, brought to you by a team of underlings mimicking the habits of a CEO, will actively destroy your professional value.
That is the crucial takeaway for you right there. Jack Dorsey is the exception that proves the rule. For the vast majority of knowledge workers, for the developers, the writers, the marketers, the financial analysts, the graphic designers, trying to work in a constant state of distraction means you will never achieve that mastery of hard things.
You just skim the surface.
And you will certainly never reach elite-level production. If you try to work like Jack Dorsey, you will just remain trapped in shallow tasks, producing mediocre output that is easily replicable by an AI or outsourced to someone cheaper halfway across the world.
For the rest of us who actually have to make things deep work, is not just a nice idea or a productivity trend. It is a fundamental necessity to avoid becoming completely obsolete in the Great Restructuring.
That's exactly it.
So we firmly established that deep work is incredibly valuable, it's rare, and it's absolutely essential for your personal success. But this brings us to what I think is the most frustrating part of this whole discussion. It's what Newport calls the workplace paradox.
The paradox, yeah.
If deep work is the absolute gold standard of the modern economy, why is the modern business landscape dominated by trends that seem actively maliciously designed to destroy it? Why do our offices feel like distraction factories?
It's maddening.
Newport outlines 3 massive overarching trends in business today that severely counteract the value of deep work and actively sabotage your ability to focus.
It is a staggering contradiction when you step back and look at it. Companies are essentially demanding elite-level, innovative, world-class results from their employees, but placing them in physical and digital environments where achieving those results is biologically and logistically impossible.
Let's look at the first distracting trend. Open office workspaces.
Oh man, don't get me started.
I know.
But here's what drives me crazy. If focus is the ultimate currency right now, why did every major tech company decide to knock down all the walls and put us at giant communal tables?
It's the aesthetic.
We've all seen them, and many of you listening probably work in one right now. Companies like Facebook and Square famously champion these massive, expansive open office designs. The stated goal, the PR spin, was to break down silos, boost collaboration, and foster a culture of spontaneous innovation.
The serendipitous encounter.
Right. Oh, you'll just bump into the marketing guy at the ping pong table and invent the next $1 million feature. But the reality is drastically, painfully different. Studies indicate that these open environments actually cause massive concentration-killing distractions. It's massive.
You are constantly subjected to visual interruptions, overheard conversations about someone's weekend, the guy eating loud chips next to you, and a complete lack of privacy. It violently pulls you out of any state of deep focus. You're basically working in a cafeteria.
It's true. The data shows that open offices actually decrease meaningful face-to-face interaction.
Wait, really?
Yeah, because everyone just puts on giant noise-canceling headphones and sends instant messages to the person sitting 3 feet away just to survive the noise.
That is so true. I've done that.
We all have. And speaking of instant messages, that brings us to the second massive trend destroying deep work, the instant messaging culture.
The endless pings.
Exactly. We're talking about tools like Slack, Microsoft Teams, and historically platforms used by companies like IBM and Hall that adopted these systems early on. These are the internal communication platforms that ping you constantly throughout the day.
And it's not just the software, it's the expectation.
Right. The culture now dictates that you are always available and that you will respond within minutes, if not seconds. The research is clear here. The interruptions caused by this constant IM culture severely delay actual task completion.
Because of the attention residue.
Yes, exactly. When your mind is anticipating a ping, or when you feel the social pressure to be green and active on Slack, your brain literally cannot fully descend into the depths required for complex problem solving. You are keeping yourself in the shallows just in case someone needs you.
Just in case. And then there's the third trend, which I think is incredibly insidious, the mounting pressure for a social media presence. And this isn't just a problem for Instagram influencers or marketing managers. It affects traditional, highly prestiged organizations as well.
The old guard.
Right. Newport uses the New York Times as a fantastic example. And again, we're just analyzing the business structure here. But even their highly respected writers and investigative journalists feel immense institutional pressure to maintain an active, constant presence on platforms like Twitter or X.
It's expected of them now.
They're expected to engage with readers, promote their articles, offer hot takes on breaking news throughout the day, and build a personal brand. This constant demand to exist in the shallow waters of social media actively diverts their focus and their most energetic hours away from the core responsibilities that actually provide value to the world.
The deep reporting.
The deep, quiet, investigative research and thoughtful writing. If a journalist is spending 3 hours a day fighting on social media, they are writing a Pulitzer-winning article.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to ask a really logical question. Why do companies do this?
Yeah, why?
If open offices, instant messaging, and social media pressure are actively eroding the very deep work that produces actual economic value, why are these trends so incredibly pervasive? Why are smart CEOs making such seemingly dumb choices?
They can't all be clueless.
Right. Newport dives deep into the why, and he outlines 4 specific concepts that explain this deeply flawed organizational behavior. The first one is brilliant. He calls it the metric black hole.
I love this concept. Let's really map this out for the listener. Okay, so if I'm a middle manager at a logistics firm, what does this metric black hole actually look like in my day-to-day? Because the idea is that organizations end up wasting massive amounts of resources on trivial, distracting tasks, simply because it is incredibly difficult to actually measure the return on investment of deep work versus shallow work.
The ROI is invisible.
Think about it. You as a manager can easily measure how many emails an employee answered in an hour. You can measure how many meetings they attended. You can see how fast they replied on Slack. But how do you quantify the financial value of an employee sitting in absolute silence staring at a whiteboard for 3 hours, wrestling with a complex algorithm, or drafting a nuanced long-term strategy?
You can't put that on a spreadsheet easily.
Because the value of that deep work is a black hole when it comes to standard corporate metrics. Businesses default to what they can easily see and measure on a dashboard, even if it's completely counterproductive.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. Because we can't measure the depth of someone's thought, we measure the volume of their clicks. And that leads directly into the second concept explaining this behavior, the principle of least resistance.
The path of least resistance.
In a culture of constant connectivity, it is simply easier for everyone involved to default to shallow behaviors.
Yeah.
Let's say you hit a roadblock on a complex project, you're confused, it's getting hard.
The pain of deep work.
The principle of least resistance says it is much easier to send a quick, half-thought-out message to a colleague asking, hey, how does this work again, than it is to engage in the hard-focused, uncomfortable thinking required to figure it out yourself.
Oh man, I am guilty of that.
We all are. The culture of rapid responses leads employees to favor constant low-stakes communication over deep productivity because it feels easier in the moment. It relieves the cognitive tension. But ultimately, it fragments everyone's day and undermines actual output.
Which brings us to the third reason. And I guarantee every single person listening to this has fallen into this trap at least once. Busyness as a proxy for productivity.
The performance.
This is the natural consequence of the metric black hole. In the absence of those clear metrics, when your boss can't easily tell if you are doing highly valuable deep work, people naturally start equating visible activity with actually doing a good job.
Look how busy I am.
Exactly. You start answering emails at 10:30 at night just so the timestamp shows you're working. You chime in on every single group chat with a thumbs up emoji. You schedule back-to-back-to-back meetings so your calendar looks like a solid block of color. You are actively performing busyness so that everyone in the office knows you are working hard.
But as Newport points out, this sacrifices deep work for the mere illusion of effectiveness. You are incredibly busy, you are exhausted at the end of the day, but you aren't actually producing anything of rare value.
That performance of busyness is exhausting, and it's driven by the fourth and final factor Newport identifies, the cult of the internet. This is the underlying, almost religious societal assumption we have developed, that anything associated with the internet, digital connectivity, and new technology is inherently and unquestionably good.
Tech is always the answer.
Right. It's a mindset that leads employees and massive organizations to mindlessly adopt modern practices like a new messaging app or a trend toward radical transparency or the metaverse without ever stopping to ask, wait, is this tool actually counterproductive to our primary goal?
Nobody stops to ask that.
It creates a pervasive environment where deep work is structurally undervalued and honestly sometimes viewed with suspicion. Because closing your door and logging off Slack looks like a rejection of the modern hyper-connected world. It looks like you're not a team player.
So what does this all mean for you? It paints a pretty bleak, almost dystopian picture of the modern office. You're trapped in a noisy room being pinged to death, forced to perform busyness just to survive.
Pretty grim.
But maintaining our commitment to looking at multiple perspectives, Newport does introduce a critical counterargument in the book. He brings up an interpretation from Jason Fried, the founder of Basecamp, and the author of the book Remote Office Not Required.
Yes, and Fried's perspective is vital for maintaining some balance here, because otherwise we just sound like cranks complaining about modern life.
Right, we don't want to just yell at clouds.
Exactly. Fried argues that the benefits of teamwork, flexibility, and rapid communication that these modern tools provide might actually, in some contexts, outweigh the detriments of the distractions they cause. He isn't saying deep work is bad, but he is pointing out that collaboration agility and the ability to pivot quickly as a team have real, undeniable value in a fast-moving, highly competitive economy.
Right. The goal here isn't to tell you to throw your smartphone in the ocean, delete all your messaging apps, move to a farm, and become a total hermit. That's not practical.
No, it's not.
The point is about deliberate balance. Newport suggests that currently the pendulum has swung dangerously, recklessly far toward the side of pure distraction. By recognizing the traps of the metric black hole and the cult of the internet, you can start pushing back.
You can harness the benefits of connectivity when absolutely necessary, but fiercely, aggressively protect your deep work from the overwhelming default state of office distraction.
Because as Newport concludes on this point, the very fact that organizations are neglecting and actively discouraging deep work is actually your greatest personal advantage.
That's the secret.
This is the secret weapon. The scarcity of deep work in the modern office is precisely what adds to its immense personal value. If everyone else in your department is drowning in emails, exhausted by Slack, and entirely incapable of focusing for more than 10 minutes, and you are the one person who cultivates a ruthless, deep work ethic, you will immediately distinguish yourself.
You look like a wizard.
You don't even have to be a genius. You just have to be the person who still knows how to sit down and focus on a hard problem for 2 hours. You can capitalize on this corporate paradox.
That transition from the mechanics of work to the personal value it brings is a perfect segue into the next major theme of what we're talking about today, the philosophy and the actual profound meaning of depth.
This is where it gets really beautiful.
Up until now, we've talked about deep work, largely as an economic tool, right? A way to avoid being automated, a way to stand out to your boss, a way to produce elite output and make more money. But Newport argues that deep work is much more profound than just a productivity hack to climb the corporate ladder.
It's deeper than that.
It is about the fundamental way you experience your life and find actual satisfaction in what you do. To illustrate this, he shares a highly specific and incredibly vivid story about a man named Rick Furr.
This is one of the most compelling examples in the entire framework. Rick Furr is a highly skilled blacksmith, and he specializes in a very particular, incredibly difficult type of ancient metalworking. He meticulously crafts Viking swords by hand.
Viking swords.
Yeah, Newport describes his workspace as an idyllic, albeit seemingly brutish barn. There's fire, there's smoke, there's the deafening sound of metal on metal. Furr engages in a labor-intensive, physically grueling process. He relies entirely on manual craftsmanship, prioritizing his physical interaction with the materials over using modern machines that could easily simplify or automate the tasks for him.
He intentionally chooses the harder, deeper path.
He does.
And what's amazing is that the book points out that in doing so, in taking the hard path, Furr finds profound meaning in every single hammer strike. He is entirely engaged. His mind and his physical body are completely aligned in a singular, focused pursuit of excellence.
Total alignment.
He isn't just producing a commodity to sell on Amazon. He's engaging in a meaningful pursuit that brings him immense personal satisfaction. It is a beautiful illustration of the blend of artistry and craftsmanship that can only come from deep, unbroken focus.
Now I want you to compare that idyllic barn and that focused, sweating blacksmith to the reality of the average modern office worker.
Oh boy.
Newport uses Furr to draw a sharp, almost painful contrast with what he calls the ambiguity of knowledge work. This is the core existential issue for most of us listening. Knowledge work, whether you're a digital marketer, a financial analyst, an HR rep, or a software developer, is inherently fundamentally ambiguous.
It's just pixels on a screen.
Exactly. You aren't striking a piece of glowing steel and watching it instantly change shape in front of your eyes. Imagine Furr hammering that glowing steel. He sees it bend, he feels the heat. At the end of the day, he holds a heavy, sharp sword in his hands.
He has proof of his labor.
Now think about your day. You moved 40 emails from unread to archive. You updated a cell in a shared Google Sheet from yellow to green. You sat on 3 Zoom calls where nothing was decided. You close your laptop at 5 p.m. and literally nothing in the physical world has changed.
Wow. Yeah, that ambiguity is terrifying, and it's exactly why so many of us feel completely burned out. The text states that this ambiguity, this total lack of defined purpose caused by spending our lives in shallow engagements, leads to profound disengagement from our own lives.
You just detach.
Your identity as a worker blurs right alongside your endless invisible tasks. You start to feel like you're just moving digital paper around all day without actually creating anything of substance. This creates a deeply rooted perception that modern knowledge work lacks the connection to meaning that we so easily recognize in skilled trades like blacksmithing or carpentry.
The modern landscape, with its demands for immediate responses and constant online presence, traps us in the shallows and it drains our sense of purpose.
This raises an important question for you to consider about your own daily routine and the guilt you might feel. Knowledge workers often face harsh criticism or internal guilt when they try to step away and avoid these shallow distractions.
It feels illegal to ignore Slack.
It feels dangerous, almost illicit, to ignore an email for 3 hours or to log off the company messaging app. We feel like we're being bad employees. Yet a craftsman like Rick Furr is universally celebrated for his singular dedication to his craft.
We revere him.
We would never expect a master blacksmith to stop mid-hammer swing to answer a text message about a lunch order. Why do we accept the necessity of deep, unbroken focus for a blacksmith, but assume a knowledge worker who is doing highly complex cognitive work should be instantly available to everyone at all times?
So what does this all mean for you in a highly practical sense? Newport is offering a profound reframing of your daily life here. He is arguing that by adopting the principles of deep work, you can actually bring the fulfilling, profound focus of a master blacksmith to whatever it is you do.
Whatever your job is.
You can bring that level of intense craftsmanship to building a complex financial model, to writing an elegant, bug-free line of code, or to crafting a nuanced marketing strategy. The tasks might be digital and they might be ambiguous, but the cognitive flow state you enter when you banish distraction is exactly the same as Furr's.
Deep work can lead to real, tangible fulfillment.
Depth in and of itself is what creates meaning. It's not about what you're working on, it's about how deeply you are engaging with it.
That realization is incredibly empowering. It shifts deep work from being a chore or a managerial demand or a productivity hack to being a personal pursuit of a well-lived life. But this is a huge challenging way, but recognizing the value and the meaning of deep work is only the first step.
The awareness isn't enough.
The harsh reality remains that human willpower is strictly limited, and the distractions surrounding us are relentless and engineered by billionaires to keep us addicted. So how do you actually execute this? How do you design a life that actually supports this depth when everything is pushing against you.
This is where we get highly practical.
This leads us to the final, highly actionable sections of Newport's framework, starting with a fascinating, almost utopian conceptual design called the eudaimonia machine.
Okay, let's unpack this machine. The eudaimonia machine is a concept created by an architecture professor named David Duane. The name itself is vital. Eudaimonia is derived from a Greek term that essentially means human flourishing or achieving your absolute highest potential.
Human flourishing.
Duane didn't just write a blog post about focus. He designed a theoretical physical architectural layout specifically engineered to foster this state of flourishing and optimal performance. It is a building designed entirely around the pursuit of deep work.
Conceptually, walking through this machine is a fantastic way to understand the necessary stages of focus. The layout is a long, narrow structure consisting of 5 interconnected rooms that you must pass through sequentially.
You can't skip ahead.
Every room caters to a different specific aspect of the deep work process. Let's walk the listener through it because it's a beautiful mental model. The first room you enter off the street is the gallery.
The gallery.
Newport describes this as a space designed to display inspiring examples of deep work produced by the people in the building. It's meant to create a culture of excellence. When you walk in, you are immediately confronted by the profound finished output of others.
It sets the tone.
This instantly shifts your mindset from the chaos of the commute to a state of inspiration. You see what's possible, and it inspires you to create something meaningful yourself.
Right, you're primed. From the gallery, you move deeper into the building into the second room, the salon. This is a space equipped with comfortable seating, maybe a bar, and high-quality coffee. It is designed for high-quality social interaction and the exchange of ideas.
It's the collaboration
It
phase.
serves as a transition zone. You've been inspired in the gallery, and now you discuss, debate, and refine your half-baked ideas with your peers in the salon. It acknowledges that deep work isn't entirely solitary. The best ideas often begin with collaborative, unstructured ideation.
Okay, so you brainstorm. Next, you transition into the third room, which is the library. This acts as a massive resource hub. It holds all the past works, the reference books, the server access, and the essential materials you need to execute your idea.
You gather your tools.
This is the gathering phase. You get your facts straight, you study the history of your topic, and you arm yourself with the necessary information so you don't have to stop and Google things later.
Then you enter the fourth room, the office. Now, this is a crucial distinction in Duane's design. In the eudaimonia machine, the office is specifically designed for low-intensity, shallow work. It looks like a standard open-plan office.
The dreaded open plan.
And this is where you sit down to answer those necessary emails, handle the administrative tasks, fill out HR forms, and clear out the logistical clutter. It recognizes that shallow work exists and absolutely must be done to keep the lights on, but it geographically contains it so it cannot infect the final stage.
Which brings us to the fifth and final room, the inner sanctum, the deep work chambers. Newport describes these as entirely soundproof, isolated rooms built for absolute, uninterrupted, intense focus.
The chamber.
Once you've been inspired in the gallery, debated your ideas in the salon, gathered your research in the library, and cleared your shallow administrative tasks in the office, you finally enter the chamber. This is where the actual elite-level production happens.
Nothing else gets in.
No phones allowed, no messaging apps, no colleagues knocking on the door. Just you, your mind, and the hard task at hand.
It's a beautiful, almost romantic architectural concept, but Newport is deeply pragmatic. He acknowledges the current frustrating challenge. Almost none of us actually work in a physical eudaimonia machine.
I certainly don't.
Most professionals work in the exact opposite environment. Those open offices we discussed earlier where shallow tasks like responding to emails are constantly prioritized. The salon is just a loud kitchen, and the deep work chambers simply do not exist.
So how do we apply the principles of this machine to our real, messy, loud, open office lives? Or to the kitchen table if you work from home in a small apartment?
It takes discipline.
Newport is very clear on one biological fact that we have to accept. Human willpower is finite. It depletes. You cannot simply sit at a desk with your inbox open, your phone buzzing on the desk, your colleagues chatting right behind you, and try to use sheer willpower to try harder to avoid the overwhelming urge for distraction.
It's a losing battle.
You might make it an hour, but you will fail. The empirical evidence on ego depletion suggests your willpower will inevitably diminish with use. You'll eventually give in, You will check the notification, and your focus will shatter.
Therefore, since you can't rely on willpower, you must rely on scheduled routines and strict frameworks to artificially construct a virtual eudaimonia machine in your own life. Newport outlines 4 specific rules for success to help you navigate this and actually build this habit. We can synthesize what they represent based on everything we've discussed today.
What's the first rule?
Rule number 1 is simply work deeply. Now that sounds obvious, but what he means is you must intentionally schedule the time for deep work. You can't just hope you'll find a free hour.
Hope is not a strategy.
You have to put it on your calendar and treat it with the absolute reverence of a non-negotiable appointment with your boss. When that hour hits you, mentally step into that soundproof chamber.
Right. If it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist.
Mm.
Rule number 2 is embrace boredom. And I think this is the hardest one for modern humans. This is about training your brain outside of working hours.
Yes, the downtime training.
If you constantly reach for your phone, the absolute second you feel a micro moment of boredom when you're waiting in line at the grocery store, sitting at a red light, waiting for a friend at a restaurant, you're actively wiring your brain to demand constant novel stimuli. You are destroying your neurological capacity for sustained focus.
You have to practice being okay with a lack of input.
Just stand in line and look at the wall. Let your brain rest so that when you sit down to do the rigorous demands of deep work, your brain doesn't panic because it isn't being entertained.
That's profound. You're training for the marathon of focus. Rule number 3 is perhaps the most socially challenging for many. Quit social media, or at least approach it with extreme skepticism.
The ultimate time sink.
Newport's analysis of the pressure for an online presence highlights how these platforms are literally engineered by brilliant data scientists to fragment your attention, hijack your dopamine, and keep you in the shallows. By quitting, or at least severely restricting them with timers and blockers, you reclaim massive amounts of cognitive real estate and attention span that you can redirect toward mastery.
And finally, rule number 4, drain the shallows. This goes back to the office room in the eudaimonia machine. You have to aggressively, ruthlessly minimize the time you spend on low-value tasks. You can't eliminate them, but you can contain them.
Containment is key.
That's your emails. Only check them at 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. Turn off every single instant notification on your phone and computer. Stop letting the principle of least resistance dictate your day. You have to actively clear the shallows so you actually have the time and the cognitive energy left to dive deep.
What's fascinating here is the ultimate promise Newport makes at the end of this framework. Because the modern world, the algorithms and the corporate structures are pushing absolutely everyone toward the shallows. The ability to do deep work is becoming increasingly astronomically rare.
It's a superpower.
If you can cultivate this deep work ethic, if you can implement these 4 rules, embrace boredom, and build your own mental eudaimonia machine, you don't just become a little more productive. You don't just get a nice performance review. You immediately fundamentally distinguish yourself in the global marketplace.
You literally become the high-skilled worker or the superstar we talked about at the very beginning of this conversation. You become indispensable.
That's the ultimate goal.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground today on this deep dive. Let's briefly recap the journey we just took. We started by understanding the harsh, unforgiving economic realities of the Great Restructuring, recognizing that technology is aggressively bifurcating the labor market, and that future success requires mastering hard things and producing at an elite level.
We learned why we shouldn't fall into the trap of trying to mimic the highly distracted, chaotic schedules of executives like Jack Dorsey.
We then explored the profound workplace paradox, dissecting exactly why modern open offices, instant messaging cultures, and the cult of the internet actually sabotage the very focus they supposedly require.
We uncovered how this leads to a culture of fake productivity and traps us in the metric black hole.
We shifted gears to look at the philosophy of depth through the eyes of Rick Furr the blacksmith, learning that focus is not just a tool for economic gain, but a deeply human craft that brings profound meaning and identity to the otherwise terrifying ambiguity of modern knowledge work.
And finally, we walked through the architectural ideal of the eudaimonia machine, translating its physical rooms into practical daily rules to overcome our finite willpower and actually schedule true depth into our lives.
This raises an important question, and it's the final, somewhat provocative thought I want to leave you with today to chew on. We've talked extensively about the Great Restructuring and how algorithms and software are rapidly taking over data analysis and basic manual tasks.
But let's extrapolate that based on the trajectory Newport describes, especially with the recent explosions in technology. What happens in the very near future when artificial intelligence fully automates the shallow work that we currently spend perhaps 80% of our day on?
Right. It's happening right now.
Exactly. If the AI can answer the routine client emails, if it can generate the basic weekly status reports perfectly and handle all the logistical scheduling flawlessly without ever taking a break, then those shallow tasks will soon have absolute zero economic value in the marketplace.
Zero value.
If that is the case, will your ability to close the door, banish distraction, enter your mental deep work chamber, and produce highly complex, deeply creative, uniquely human output be the only thing keeping you employable?
The only thing left.
The Great Restructuring isn't over. It is accelerating exponentially. How can you start training your brain for that inevitable, highly automated future today before it's too late?
That is a profound, slightly terrifying, but ultimately motivating thought to mull over. But the good news is it's exactly why mastering this skill is so vital, and you have the tools and the framework to do it now. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We strongly encourage you to take these insights, look at your messy calendar right now, and carve out just one single distraction-free hour today to practice your newfound focus. Turn off the notifications, put the phone in another room, step into the chamber, and see what you're truly capable of. We will see you next time.